Hi, I'm Tom Jones and welcome. This is a fun painting that we're going to do called Fire on the Mountain. You're going to love this. You're going to get to see some exciting brush work, a lot of variety of color and so forth. But let's talk just a little bit about what you see on the paper here. This little gray area you see is actually the frisket that I've placed on here, and I actually took my number 8 round brush. And when you dip it into your frisket, you can use your good brush, but you have to be very careful. Let me mention that to you. You'll notice where the hair ends and this metal starts, that is called the ferrule, that metal part. When you dip it in the frisket, if you're using your good brush, be very careful not to let the frisket get up to where the ferrule is, because the frisket can get under there and it will dry and it'll ruin your brush. If you have an old brush around, like a number 8 round brush, a nylon brush or something like that, works perfectly. And what I do is I take and dip it in my frisket, then I splatter it in this particular area. I've got some floral that's going to be appearing here when we finish this painting. I'll be pulling that frisket off. You'll get to see all of that. But I also wanted to let you know that I had a couple of splatters that happened in a couple of areas that I don't particularly want there. Here's a couple of things that's important. Be very careful with the frisket, because it will come off of watercolor paper or hard surfaces. It won't come out of clothing or carpet or furniture. But you'll notice here that I've put down the frisket and I deliberately left it there and I let it dry. And the reason I did that is I want to show you that you should let it dry before you remove it. So I'm just going to take my finger and I'm just going to pull off those two areas where I don't want the frisket. And again, it must be dry before you try to pull it off. Now, we've got an interesting shape of the frisket. We can get started. Let's go ahead and start with the background first. Let's take a look at the sky. I've got some wonderful cerulean blue that I want to use. I'm going to pick up a little bit of that with my 1-inch flat brush. You'll notice that I'm only using these 4 brushes, a number 1-inch flat, a 3/4 inch flat, my number 8 round, and my number 8 script brush. Those are the 4 brushes that you'll need for this particular painting. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a nice a layer of the cerulean blue, and I'm going to put a layer of it right here into the background. This is going to be my mountain, and you're also going to see some sky coming in here, and I'll use just a little bit of the cerulean blue, and I'll use it with my ultramarine blue deep to get just a little bit darker shade, sort of make it more interesting that way. And I've let this color come all the way down here. You'll notice that the mountain is very light. Now we're going to take the sky and keep it very simple. I'll add just a touch of my ultramarine blue deep to the cerulean, and I'll come up into the sky and I'll just add a very simple sky in here. Okay? The emphasis is not going to be on the sky in this painting. The emphasis is going to be on some beautiful evergreen trees, some conifers, and on the fire on the mountain. Just for your own information, you folks that live in the mountain areas like the Smokies, they have a wonderful event that happens every summer, and that is that you have these blooms that occur high up in the Smoky Mountains, and it's called an azalea, a wild azalea, and it has these wonderful different shades of orange, from a yellow orange to a red orange, and it blankets the mountains many times in certain areas. So you get a chance to see that if you're up into the Smoky Mountains. See that? A very simple sky. Again, cerulean blue for the mountain, very simple, very loose brush strokes, soften at the edges, at the bottom edge. Then I put the sky in with some ultramarine blue mixture along with my cerulean, and I got an interesting, wonderful blue for that. Now, that area is done. We don't have to do any more in that area. I'm going to move down. We're going to take a hair dryer and dry this in a moment, but I want to move down into the area of the grass area, which is from this line that you see here down. So I'm going to take a little bit of my yellow, and we'll add just a little bit of a yellow into the horizontal plane, or in this case, the grass. We'll take a little bit of our yellow ochre now. We haven't used that yet in this painting, so we'll use a little bit of that. We'll put some yellow ochre in to the grass area. We want to keep this area light. Always remember that when we first start painting, we're doing what's called the underpainting. We build our paintings in layers, from light values to midtones to darks. Now, one of the things I would like to suggest to you in the grass area is try to avoid coming in and blending and getting rid of all the little white areas. You don't want to do that. You want to preserve those white areas. Leave some of the white. Don't cover up all of the white. And the reason for that is we're going to come back later and do a light glaze of color. And what will happen is those little areas that are white will appear there. They'll remain there, but they'll be a little bit more subdued. So now I'm going to switch over. I'm going to pick up a little bit of my Hooker Green Deep, and a little bit of my lemon yellow. And what I'm going to do is I want to have a little bit lighter color of green, sort of a spring type green. And I'll come in and start adding some of that color. I want to keep this nice and bright and yellow over toward the area where the floral is going to be. But as I get further away, I'll start putting in some green. Now again, I want some variety of color, so I'll pick up a little bit of my cerulean blue as an example. And we might put a little bit of that in it. Keep the cerulean blue more to the left side of your paper. And again, it's important to leave a lot of white, so don't blend the colors. Just lay them in, leave them do their own thing, because these colors, I always say, are smarter than me. They'll mingle, they'll create all kinds of interesting abstract shapes and so forth that you'll love in your finished painting. Now, just to review, notice all of the white that I've left. It's very, very important that you do that, because that's going to make your job easier when you get ready to do the finishing touches on your grass area. You're going to not have to worry about creating too much texture. The paint is going to do it for you. As I get farther away, I'll add more blue and more green to this area over here, where over here you'll notice that it's nice and warm. So warm next to our center of interest over here, and then cooler as we get farther away. Okay? See how rough and abstract that is? You can do this. It's so easy, and it's a lot of fun. If you can learn to lay in the color and leave it alone, let it do its own thing, you'll have a very successful painting. Now I'm at a stage where I want to start putting in some distant trees in this particular area of the painting. In order to do that, this area needs to be dry, completely dry, because what I want is I want a nice hard edge where the trees are up against that back mountain area and so forth. In order for that to happen, this area has to be dry. If it's not, when I start adding color in here, it's just going to melt away. So it's very important. Dry it first, be very patient. Now, let me suggest to you that in my studio, many times, I let it air dry. That's what we call it, air dry. Dry on its own. I don't usually use a hair dryer, but for today's DVD, in order to speed up the process, we'll go ahead and use a hair dryer to make it easier for you, okay? So I'm going to dry it, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how we add those trees in.